Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And now on the new subsidiary channel, it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. You know, it's probably a good thing that I'm starting new episodes of this series on a brand new channel this week. It's relatively slow and gradual, nothing too crazy or out of the ordinary. The Billie Eilish album bomb is just around the corner, but not here yet. And with those consistent streaming numbers, she's absolutely getting there. But it's about the best possible time for a pivot to leave the copyright takedowns behind and start afresh on a channel that's not deprioritized into the dirt. So yeah, welcome on board, folks, both returning and new. This week we've got Nav, Logic, and Bebe Rexha. Okay, hang on, don't move away just yet. Let's start off with our top 10 here. Where to the surprise of pretty much nobody, 7 Rings by Ariana Grande is still at number 1. And really, it's not because she's dominant in any one format. Yeah, a decent rebound on sales, but streaming was weaker and radio looks to be stalling out. So she is vulnerable to a challenge. And from the looks of it, Wow by Post Malone looks to be getting there up to number 2. Better sales, better streaming, better YouTube, and the sooner he narrows that airplay margin, he'll probably get that top spot. And honestly, for as much as I like the song, it's about damn time. Hell, it passed over Sunflower by Post Malone and Sway Lee at number 3, which might have more streaming, but got eclipsed on the radio and sales. Again, I'm pretty sure this is finally starting to be on the way out, and I'm honestly okay with that. But that's even more of the category for Without Me by Halsey down at number 4, and in free fall in pretty much every category. Now granted, I've been saying this will fall off for weeks, but it might be in its weakest position yet. I might actually have a point this time. Then we got Please Me by Cardi B and Bruno Mars stuck at number 5. Yeah, the radio might like it, but those weak sales and streaming stats tell a much different story about how the song is moving, and it's not a good sign. I wish I could say the same thing about Happier by Marshmello and Bastille still at number 6, but it's where it is because of inertia. It's not falling away all that quickly, but it is going out. Hell, I think Middle Child by J. Cole will probably pass it soon, rising up to number 7 this week thanks to consistent streaming, and I just wish that the radio would pick up more effectively if this is gonna be a hit. Hell, Thotiana by Blueface is back in the top 10 at number 8 because its streaming is actually better, and it actually seems to have some real radio traction, although it's got a long way to really close that gap. It even pushed past Sucker by the Jonas Brothers down at number 9, which yes, absolutely has some real radio traction, but the sales are starting to slip, and the streaming just isn't consistently there. I think the industry might be happier that this is moving units more than having actual organic groundswell. That's all I'm saying. Finally, somehow clinging to number 10, Shallow by Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, where despite being dominant on sales for another week and picking up some more radio gains, the streaming is just nowhere close to being good enough to make this viable going forward. Second win might be about over. Kind of a shame because I still really like the song. Now to flip over to our losers and dropouts, and we've only got one in the latter category that really seems to matter, and even then I find it a stretch to say anyone really cared all that much about Ella Queer Beber by Annual AA and Romeo Santos, at least within the United States. And the losers, they aren't all that surprising either. As expected, Juice WRLD album cuts like Empty and Hear Me Callin' both collapsed to 99 and 86 respectively. I by Lil Skies continues to tank at 82, and the gains for Pure Cocaine by Lil Baby and I Can't Get Enough by Benny Blanco, Taney, Selena Gomez, and J Balvin, they evaporated at 70 and 85 respectively. Now what was a pleasant surprise for me was a hard drop for Take It From Me by Jordan Davis at 79, and then Undecided by Chris Brown sliding down to 91. A much less pleasant surprise with the striking drop off for Millionaire by Chris Stapleton down to 64. I mean, I still think the song had some legs, but it wouldn't have been my choice of the singles from that album anyway, so yeah, okay, it happens. I just want to see a new Chris Stapleton album. Now, where things seem to get a bit more interesting comes in our gains and our returning entries. Well, okay, one returning entry for Splashin' by Rich the Kid at 80, but I'm not seeing anybody really caring about that, so let's move on. No, there was a healthy list of gains this week, with most of them being in country, which looks to me like the radio just rotating out their winter playlist for the spring. So, on the one hand, we're getting boosts for Miss Me More by Kelsey Ballerini to 60, and Down to the Honky Tonk by Jake Owen at 69, which is likely a good sign for his recent album release. But on the flip side, we also saw boosts for Good As You by Kane Brown at 59, and Look What God Gave Her by Thomas Rhett at 65, and One That Got Away by Michael Ray at 67. Now as for the rest, look, Walk Me Home by Pink finally seemed to get some traction at 63, and Old Town Road by Lil Nas X benefited off of a lot of stupid controversy to surge up to 15. Stay tuned for a video where I will discuss more of that. But what really shocked me was the jump for Here With Me by Marshmello and Churches to 53. Apparently picking up a lot of YouTube and radio will get you there, so I am curious if this will actually maintain some traction. And hoping to God it doesn't influence the sound on Church's next album, but we'll have to see there. Anyway, we've got a pretty brisk list of new arrivals, so let's start off with number 98, Last Hurrah by Bebe Rexha. I ain't gonna stop till I go too far. Last hurrah. Well, this is moving on from expectations faster than I expected. Now, granted, I've been running with how I thought that album was bad for a couple months now, but I am a little surprised that Bebe Rexha isn't trying to force out another single, possibly as a factor of her bucketing so many older songs onto that debut project that were kind of singles years earlier. But I guess that kind of happens given the industry. Anyway, lead-off single for the sophomore album. And seriously, would it have killed you to hire a decent vocal producer who lets some clearer tones through? Or are you just such a limited vocal presence that you can't help but gargle some of the notes, especially on the hook? And this is coming from someone who actually thinks that the fried-out vocal tone she had on the bridge had some potential. But then we get into that increasingly shrill final chorus of some of the multi-tracking, and I have to back away. Beyond that, bland percussion over melody pop music that suffocates the guitar at the very back, and content that tries to say this is her last hurrah to go wild and then get over her demons, be focused on herself. But she's also saying that she's done this time and time again. So why exactly am I supposed to buy into any of this and any of the stakes here? And to think that early on I thought Bebe Rexha had potential, but by this point she's long ago squandered it. So yeah, not good. Next, number 97, Don't Call Me Up by Mabel. Feeling good now you're out of my life, don't wanna talk about us. Gotta leave it behind, one drink and you're out of my mind. So I was originally planning to have this as a world hit last week thanks to her success on the UK charts, but was told in one of my group chats that it's likely gonna hit the Hot 100 anyway, and why not give some shine to some other acts instead? So, quick introduction. Mabel is an R&B singer-songwriter that just happens to be the daughter of Nina Cherry and Massive Attack producer Cameron McVeigh. So if you want to know how she got onto the scene, there's probably that. With her debut album dropping in 2017, but only getting this song onto the charts thanks to a reissue of the album in January of this year. And man, this should have been better than it is. Again, what is with this tinny vocal layering where the shrillest points are emphasized by the multi-tracking? Especially when her alto, it's perfectly fine. A little bit like Dua Lipa, but that is a sound I like and could easily work. And again, I have to keep blaming for the production for going wrong here. What is that blaring tone in the strings pickup slathered all over the pre-chorus? Especially when the percussion builds a pretty decent groove and the pitch-shifted drop isn't that bad at all. Yeah, hell, even the lyrics are very Dua Lipa in their kiss-off. Hell, the straightforward and effective writing might be the easiest selling point moving this to pop radio. So yeah, I'd probably take this over Bebe Rexha, but I need to hear more with better production than I am willing to endorse this. I mean, it's okay, but it should be better. Number 95, Pop Out by Polo G featuring Lil Tjay. So tuck your chain, I'm a killer girl, I'm sorry, but I can't change. Man, it's annoying to see a name like Polo G and then just swear you've talked about him sometime before on Billboard Breakdown at one point, but then realize that he's a Chicago trap MC that seems to be on his come up right about now, backing on this single featuring Lil Tjay, a name that I definitely am not familiar with, so two interchangeable trap artists. But I've heard worse in this sort of song. Yeah, the piano melody's mostly perfunctory compared to the trap beat, but both Polo G and Lil Tjay have some distinctive voices, and even if the content feels pretty by the numbers, the writing and the hook, they do punch a little bit higher than normal, mostly thanks to rhymes that all connect, and an undercurrent of melancholy in the framing of the grim reality of the violence surrounding their lives, especially through Lil Tjay's verse referencing his brother's death entirely too soon. It's mostly tonally consistent, and as a whole, look, I'm still sticking up for YK Osiris as the most promising new trap artist moving right now in the Hot 100, but this isn't precisely bad either. I'm curious where this will go, because it's pretty decent. Number 89, Tap by Nav featuring Meek Mill.
They said that they were with it, but it's cap.
Okay, full disclosure, I was prepared to start this off by asking who in the nine hells cares about Nav, but truth be told, I already got my fill of jabs in a week or so back when the album dropped and Nav was running an AMA on Twitter that was apparently getting a lot less mockery than I expected, so I confined my snarkiness to the group chat and pretty much moved on. Plus, I heard that the song At Least Meek Mill really came through on it, and well, that was a stretch for Meek Mill sticking his thumb in girls' butts as he's shooting people, but he's at least showing more interesting presence than Nav is, and his sad attempt at being interesting. The repeated words on the hook is squawking, and oddly is not all that catchy. His verse is mostly unstructured flexing, and outside of Meek Mill apparently being the first person who ever showed him love, which I'm also fairly certain is Travis Scott, so it's kind of bullshit, there's just nothing here that really stands out from Nav, at least with all that very dry, formulaic trap production. So yeah, it's not terrible, but is mediocre, and I'm fairly certain I will forget this exists in no time at all. Which takes us to number 78, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind by Logic. So Logic put out a pop alternative rock thing called Supermarket by surprise last week as a soundtrack from a book that he just released, and apparently it sucks. Book and album both. Now, I stand by the book being bad. I've seen enough horrible passages to give me the impression that it's largely unreadable, and I've got zero interest in listening to Supermarket, mostly because in a week where we get new albums from Epic Beard Men, Billy Woods, Quelle Chris, and Yelawolf, I've just got zero interest in a Logic soundtrack album. But apparently this is the title track and the second single for his next album after Keanu Reeves, and this album is called Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. And this is just two extended verses, one hook against a lot of watery keys, some scratchy percussion, a bit of a muted guitar line, and Logic jacking a flow from Kendrick Lamar. And here's the thing. I'm kind of okay with Logic making a song like this, where he tries to delve into his insecurities and pain that he's tried to suppress getting famous. And he's had success with some of this before. I've heard songs that kind of work for him in this lane, until you start asking questions that he'd probably prefer you don't. I mean, dude, I get that social media is overwhelming and draining in your position, but people make the comparisons to Kendrick and Drake and J. Cole because the flows and cadences you bring are often a blatant retread, and it's a little hard to feel sorry for you for getting compared to other MCs when you invite the comparisons upon yourself for all the bragging that you're the best. That's not a free pass for folks to be assholes, sure, but comparisons and critiques are allowed, especially when there's been a noticeable drop-off in quality since Under Pressure and The Incredible True Story. Because yeah, dude, I used to be a fan. And yeah, it's probably all been amplified being on an increased platform and getting famous. But if your response to all of this is platitudes like fuck the haters, put ego aside, and love yourself, it draws all the more attention to lines like, ain't God, but I'm rich and I think that I am, or a line like, I feel like a king and my queen is Coretta. Yeah, not good, dude. And I want to have some hope for this, but no, not working for me. And finally, number 72, Price on My Head by Nav featuring The Weeknd. Oh, I was dreading this one. I'm normally a big fan of The Weeknd, and when I heard that not only was this more of his song than Nav's, but that he delivered a really bad performance, I was worried. And yes, suspicions confirmed, this is bad. Did everyone just decide to get garbage vocal production this week? Because that high-pitched auto-tune warble for a hook is perhaps the worst possible choice for The Weeknd, especially opposite two verses that sound pretty normal, especially opposite those funereal organs and that weird tropical trap percussion. Meanwhile, the entire song is drenched in paranoia that's got no tension in delivery or production, flexing that doesn't match with any of it, especially for The Weeknd with all the girls screwing him for brands. And can I ask, who the hell is gunning for either of these two? I mean, with Nav, he's at least threatening back, although getting maybe the codeine addict as a shooter was a bit of a stupid idea. But again, it's hard for me to sympathize with this paranoia when he's putting all the more money into perpetuating more of that violence. If he's calling out Rexdale within Toronto, you'd think that he'd probably know better than that. But even beyond my local issues, this is still a really lousy song, and a pretty lousy week as a whole. Probably not the best way to start this series on a new channel. Now the best, I'll say Pop Out by Polo G featuring Lil Tjay, which seems to be punching a little bit higher than you would otherwise expect for that sort of song, with the worst going to Price on My Head from Nav and The Weeknd, if only because The Weeknd should sure as hell know better by now. Now, thankfully, next week we're going to get a considerable amount of Billie Eilish songs, so stay tuned for that. Otherwise, welcome to the new home of Billboard Breakdown. Thanks for coming over or stopping by. Until then, subsidiary of Spectrum Pulse, you're watching Billboard Breakdown. I'm Mark, and I'll see you next time.